Hey there guys, welcome back to yet another video. The last time we spoke, we were discussing the engine updates and things I've done to it. It was on the stand still. Directly after recording those clips and putting my phone down, something just came over me and took me over that night, and I ended up busting my ass and got the engine in the car that night. So, the engine and transmission and everything is in the car. Everything's all wired and done. So, without further ado, allow me to spin the camera around and I'll show you guys the engine bay. 1 second. Alrighty, you guys ready to see this thing? There it is, guys. Get closer so it's not so blurry. We got the engine in. Everything looks beautiful. I'm absolutely in love. Very simplistic. Everything just looks really clean. So after 2 years of this car sitting, it finally lives again. As you guys remember, we've repainted the engine bay this past last winter. Looks really good. Turned out really amazing, both sides. This time I also wire tucked the engine bay harness. It no longer leaves here. It now exits down here through this heat shield, the heat shield that I notched. This wire tuck here was done years ago. I just wanted to do more this year. But here is the engine in the car. If it focuses, there we go. Everything's going to function properly. I'm very excited to get this thing up to operating temperature, because it does start and idle, which is really cool. So the fuel pressure regulator, it ended up right where it was supposed to, right next to the brake master cylinder there, and you can see, right next to the reservoir, you can visibly see it right through there, so I can always see my fuel pressure. I did have to notch out the cabin air filter tray, so I'm going to have to probably use some kind of duct taping, like the aluminum stuff, and probably just mask off the hole in here or something, or maybe conform some aluminum for that hump. But yeah, it ended up really good. All the fuel lines are ran and everything, enough for testing and stuff like that. We're retaining the MS42 M52 TU throttle body for now. Just make sure this engine's good, ready to rock. Adapting it to this intake manifold is a Beamer Tune throttle body adapter. They're located in Europe, Lithuania. They came pretty quickly, actually. The engine bay harness, the actual engine harness, you know that big black box that usually houses the wires? That's gone. I opened it, deleted all the circuits I'm no longer using. See these wires right here? These are for the MAF sensor. They need to be ran. That's why those are uncovered. And also, when I was making the fuel pressure regulator bracket, I had to keep in mind that I still had to be able to plug in my DISA. So you see it still plugs in easily. Also, this bracket accommodates for the M52 TU DISAs as well. Because if you guys don't know, the M52 TU DISAs, they're slightly smaller, and also the bolt spacing is. So that bracket is notched so it can fit different intake manifolds. That may be a product I release eventually if I make a bunch of clones, because it also gives you room for the throttle cable to run through that big gap, or your brake booster hose. I ran it a different way. It still ends up in there. But yeah, that's a little bit of thought went into that bracket. But anyway, this intake manifold is actually the intake manifold from an M56 engine, the Sulev engine. And I'll show you guys in this video exactly why I chose this intake manifold over the standard 3.0 intake. And once again, the cover from Vader Solutions. Omar, very cool guy. He also offers a lot more products than just this. He has quite a few different accessories and parts for multiple generations of BMWs. So yeah, overall the engine does start, does idle. It sounds excellent. However, I'm going to put the OE exhaust from the coupe on here, make it quiet so I can actually listen to the engine itself, because currently open headers in this small shop are very loud and chaotic, and I cannot actually hear the engine itself. So I'm gonna put the OE exhaust back on. Also, a key note is this car, being an M52 TU, the original exhaust would not bolt up to these headers unless you cut and rotate the flanges, because on 323s and 328s, you see those flanges down there? On the 323 and 328s, they are orientated in a different direction versus M54 cars, like 325s and 330s. These headers have the correct flange rotation for M54 cars, so it bolts right on. But yeah, that's a good thing if you guys are buying headers for your cars. Always be prepared to, if you have to, cut off and rotate your exhaust flanges. Right here's your flanges. Rotate them in case you have to. What else we have going on here? The crankcase ventilation is just still mocked up and everything. Also, I also didn't show you guys the solid steering coupler. If I can zoom in while I'm recording. Right there from, I believe that's a garagistic one. It's solid aluminum versus the OEM rubber couplers. So that's installed in there for better steering response and just more of a connected feel. And also the heater hoses, since we've deleted the heater control valve, that is only there for whenever you turn on the it regulates in-cabin temperature for luxurious, reasons, because BMW always has all these cool options like that. That little between the dial in the on your dashboard, that dial that goes from red to blue, between that and adjusting your temperature on the HVAC system, this little valve is constantly opening and closing to regulate the temperature inside. So I don't need that. My AC is gone. I'm just retaining heat, so I just have the heater hoses. Here's a hard pipe from the engine. I think this one comes from the timing cover or the head. I can't remember which one this is. I think the one in the back comes from the head. I think this one's from the timing cover here. I'm pretty sure it is. I can't remember. But anyway, they just go straight to the heater core. The reason why I retained it this year is because I do drive this car in the fall and early winter before snow. So I like to have heat in here. And also, the heater core acts as a miniature radiator. So just imagine a radiator. Right here's my M3 radiator. Like probably the quarter of the size of this is your heater core. And whenever you turn on your blower fan to high speed, it acts the same thing as a big radiator where air is forced through it. Same thing with a heater core. Why does it keep getting so blurry? I'm getting irritated. Must be the LED lighting above me. Whenever you're driving your car, air is being forced through the radiator, keep your coolant temperatures down. Excuse me. Same thing with a heater core. It's like a miniature radiator. So whenever you blast your heat, the blower motor is forcing air through your heater core. So it also drops temps a little bit. Nothing really that crazy, but it is noticeable up to a few degrees even. It can be uncomfortable at times, especially on track days. If you're driving your car really hard and it's already hot on the track in the cabin and you're blasting your heat to keep coolant temps down. So not usually worth it then. At that point, we'll just delete the caps for the hard pipes, because you can buy kits, I believe, from Beamer World. There's a cap that goes in the timing cover or the head. Yeah, this one just gets an actual cap here, a metal cap. And the one, the cylinder head, gets an actual bolt-in cap. And then we get the firewall cover and all that stuff. So as far as additional tucking for this year, we wire tuck the ignition harness. It is totally gone. You can't even see where it goes, because typically, how it comes up, wraps around and goes into here along with the 12-volt power wire. Well, that's all been retucked. I actually tore apart the ignition harness itself, the plastic cage, and I ran the wires backward through it, and I dremeled out a U shape for the harness to exit. So it exits, like I say, you can't see it, but it exits back here. I have it tucked. Right on the tip of my finger, I can feel it. That's where the harness is. It then goes into the firewall cover with a hole that's drilled, you can't see, runs back, comes up through here, wraps behind the brake booster. Underneath all these, you can see it right. That is the ignition coil harness right there. It just wraps around, comes into the DME box right here. And then the engine harness leaves its typical spot to keep this nice and water sealed. And it just runs straight down, like I showed you, right there. And then also that 12-volt power wire, it's also ran through the firewall. Really not much you can do with it, but it exits right here. See it back there, and then it comes up in and connects right there. That just completes the battery to the engine connection, the solid 12 volts. So we have that covered with a nice thick rubber hose where the union is, so it's not going to arc, so it's not going to arc or short off anything. And just goes in and hides. But yeah, this car this time around, like I said, my work this time is just so much better. Like this, I'm in love with this engine bay. I love it. This car is turning out just the way I wanted it. Wire tuck and everything looks great. But now, let's discuss the intake manifold. The previous recording, as you guys seen, I thought I purchased a 3.0 intake manifold. Months go by, I put on the engine. Turns out it's a 2.5 intake manifold. An honest mistake by the seller and myself for not checking the part number on the listing. Anyway, what I had here on hand from my parts cars was an M56 Sulev intake manifold. I'm going to pull this one off the shelf and show you guys. We're going to discuss it real quick, so let's grab it. So right off the bat, I actually want to talk about how come I didn't choose the M50 intake, a very well-known intake manifold? Well, when it comes to that intake manifold, you actually lose some bottom-end torque. I don't want that. This car being an autocross car and a mild circuit car, I want torque throughout all the RPM ranges. So I like to retain a stock DISA system if I can. So when it comes to the M52TU, a huge upgrade is using a 3.0 intake manifold because the M52TU intake manifolds are very restrictive. All right, so to the right is an M52TU intake manifold, and to the left is an M56 intake manifold. So what we're going to do is, the first thing we're going to look at when it comes to the M52TU, we're going to look at these main ports here at the cylinder head. Hopefully it gets clear there. Okay, so here's the ports for the intake manifold to the cylinder head from an 323 and 328 engine. This is an intake manifold from an M56. Now keep in mind, these ports down here are all the same size through M54 platforms and the M56. So that right off the bat is a huge thing because you'll see how much bigger these ports actually are. The gasket is still in here, so don't let it mess with your vision here. But just try to imagine the gasket isn't in there. You see right off the bat how the ports are larger, especially towards these corners here. They are more, they are more reamed out versus the TU, M52 TU intake manifold. So that right there is a big, significant increase in airflow to the engine. So that was a main reason why, regardless, installing a B30 intake manifold onto your M52 TU 323 and 328 makes a big difference. Also, we go to the throttle body port, and from my findings, the M56 intake manifold has the same bolt spacing, and same port size as a 3.0 intake manifold. So that compared to an F52 TU intake manifold, there's a pretty big difference there between the ports and the throttle body. Maybe kind of hard to see on camera, but in person you can easily see it. Then also, when it comes to the DISA, the 3.0 DISA and also the 325 DISA is larger than the M52 TU DISA in both diameter and bolt spacing. Here is the 323 and 328 DISA port, and here is the 3.0 M52 or M54 325 DISA port. They are larger. They are larger. And also, when it comes to the 3.0, they have the largest flap size right here. So the 3.0 DISA is specific to 3.0, same as the throttle body. Also, what's cool is the 3.0 DISA fits the M56. So the 325 SULIV and 3.0 share the same DISA. However, the SULIV has a specific throttle body, which I find strange because the bolt spacing is the same as a 3.0 intake manifold. Hence the throttle body adapter plate made for a 3.0. It bolts to these intakes. So this M56, also another key thing why I favor this intake manifold is because on the M56, your vacuum distribution rail for the CCV, your standard one, amongst M54 and M52 TU, they have all 6 ports. Now, I would like to plug all of these, but for simplicity reasons, we use this intake manifold because it's actually built on. So I only have to cap one port now. That was very easy to do. And also, when it comes to injector sealing, the M56 intake manifold has much tighter injector sealing down here at the intake manifold itself. So let's talk about SULIV real quick. SULIV stands for Super Ultra Low Emissions Vehicle, meaning it meets super high tolerance emission standards. So the engine and fuel system as a whole is a very tightly sealed unit to avoid any excessive vapors escaping into the atmosphere. Hence why these injector ports are a little smaller and more tight for injectors. I'm still using the standard fuel rail on this because it bolted right on and still nice and tight. Another big thing is when it comes to the intake manifold for the F56 is it uses different intake manifold gaskets here, and it does not use these spacers like this. These spacers move on these intake manifolds for the F52 TU and F54, the typical ones. With the M56, they don't use that. They just use a straight, just a sleeve that's actually pressed into the intake manifold. So that also allows for a lot tighter of a seal at the cylinder head. Another reason why I chose it. Also, when it comes to other ports for the M56, at the very back of the intake manifold, there are only 2 ports to worry about versus a total of 3 on the standard intake manifold. See, one's already capped. That was another reason why I chose it. Another reason being, when it comes to the brake booster hose, it uses a quick disconnect snap, and you can orientate it in any position that you want. The M52 TUs, they almost have the same thing. You can rotate this around, but on M54, they are fixed to, what would it be, to the back, so you can't move them around. I like being able to move that around. And also, the port for the evap solenoid, or purge valve, is a bolt-down style flange. Now, I'm sure you could utilize this for something, for another high vacuum application, but I can guarantee this will never leak because it uses a double O-ring system. And it literally bolts in there, versus the standard intake manifolds, the hose literally just presses onto a nipple. So I'm not sure how well it would work, but perhaps like a meth injection system, or I would actually preferably do that, one to each runner for meth injection or before the intake somewhere. But perhaps if this intake flows accordingly, you can put your meth injection down here or something. I wouldn't. I'd probably use it for maybe a boost reference or something, but still pretty cool. I just find it very cool discovering the differences on my own when it comes to Sulivs and standard E46s. I also like using parts that people overlook. You know, I never seen anybody use this intake manifold before, but it's sharing the same characteristics port-wise as a 3.0 intake manifold, and it was stupid for me not to, because everything I love about it is just really cool. I feel like I'm missing one more point. Maybe not, but overall, it's pretty cool to see the differences between a standard intake manifold here. So, oh yeah, and also one key note is I see a lot of guys converting to the M56 valve cover because it's aluminum. I sell a lot of those as a part seller. I buy cars, a Suliv knife. That's one of the first things I try to sell because it goes pretty quick. I like to see those in turbo applications whenever they're vented to atmosphere. I don't like seeing them, well, at least now after learning, I do not like seeing the M56 valve cover used for its PCV system on these engines. I know a lot of guys don't like the stock CCV when it comes to these engines because it's a hassle to replace, but realistically, it's ingenious, lasts a long-ass time, and it works great. So people who don't favor the stock CCV, they'll resort to installing an M56 aluminum valve cover that has the PCV system pretty much right here for this valve cover, and it regulates, crankcase pressure and everything. From my own experience now, after having 3 Suliv cars here, I find the M56 intake manifolds to be quite a bit more dirty compared to the M52 TU. So maybe the M56 conversion isn't worth the hype after all, unless you're obviously turbo or track and have the valve cover vented to atmosphere, or if you're using a different catch can setup. But from what I've seen, running them the way they're meant to be ran, I find that the M56 engine's more gunked up versus the standard CCV system. It's just a little food for thought for you guys, because I never see anybody actually look into these engines, verify whether or not it's effective to use the valve cover as a whole or not when it comes to utilizing it for its stock CCV integrated system. So during the first prime of this engine, when I had it all together, during the first fuel system prime, my regulator was still adjusted to my original fuel pump, which was a Walbro 255 from the turbo setup. So me then going to an inline AEM high output 400 LPH has quite a big flow to it. I went to prime the car for the first time, and it shot fuel pressure like that, way past 80, and actually ruptured my original injectors. It ruptured these injectors. Fuel was literally pissing out of this hole right here. I have a video of it on my channel. I'll actually put it right here so you guys can see what happened. 1 second. See? Right there, dude. Look at that. Literally out of the injector itself. What is going on here? He's taking a little piss break, apparently. All of his little buddies, too. I've never seen that before on these injectors. That's something else. But yeah, that was simply from priming the fuel system with having the regulator set too high. It just shot fuel to the rail super fast, and it spiked pressure. and it ruptured the injectors. But what I found was that was the ultimate test for all my AN fittings. Nothing else leaked, just the injectors. Oh, my feed line did leak because I just had to tighten it. The fitting was a little loose. Once I tightened it, no more leaks besides the injectors that were just pissing fuel because they were ruptured. So I just found, me having a bunch of parts cards, I had more injectors here, so threw some fresh injectors in it and no more leaks. So it holds pressure just fine. Hey guys, I want to also discuss some key people that I want you guys to support if you ever need anything for these cars. So, if you're wondering whose base map or base tune is on this car right now, it's actually Joel's of B Racing Tuning. We'll get to him in 1 second. If you're wondering what happened to Vlad, nothing. We're still really good friends. He's still my tuner. However, Vlad is a very busy guy now, and I like to let him breathe. If I'm not in his inbox, always hounding him. I feel bad. I'm sorry, Vlad, but you're very smart. I like talking to you. So on the days that I can't let him breathe, I will reach out to other people. Vlad is still the primary tuner of this car whenever it's back out on the street. But just to hear it run for the first time in 2 years, there's a base map from B Racing Tuning from Joel's. This is him right here, his Facebook profile. Very cool guy. Is actually even gave me a base tune on a Sunday. Out of all days, he was right there in the spot. We're on Messenger talking. It's like, yeah, my car won't stay idling because it's still on the turbo tune. So Joe's like, hey, I'll send you a base map. I'm like, what? All right. So it's on the car. It runs. It idles flawlessly. I can already tell this guy's he knows what he's doing. He also does forced induction tunes. Same as Vlad. If you guys know, I recommend Vlad to death. He's my go-to guy for tuning. But we have to keep our options open because you never know what's going to happen. So we have 3 people who can tune your E46, forced induction, or NA applications remotely. We have Joel's of B Racing Tuning, my personal favorite, Vlad Belsky of Belsky Auto Works, and we have a third person named Daniel Clevers of Chaos Calibrations. All 3 are absolute brainiacs and can tune mainly all DME versions of E46 and other BMWs. And also now, Vlad, within this past year, has came a very, very long way. He doesn't get as much credit as he deserves because his Facebook page of Belsky Auto Works is no longer just a Facebook page. It is now a real-life business. He has a shop in Florida. So if you want precise work, such as I perform on my own car from somebody else that you can trust, I would trust with my life, would be Vlad at Belsky Auto Works in Florida. Here's the zip code to his shop and also his Facebook page and his business page. Excellent guy. He does some crazy things. I see him do a V8 swap in an E34, I think. He's currently diesel swapping his X5. I think it's an X5. And also 6-speed mail train swapping it. He does really cool work. Legit shop with a lift and everything. If you need your car repaired, if you're local to Florida or live in Florida, take your BMW to him. You can trust this guy. We also, when it comes to products, there's 2 vendors I love to support. Actually, we'll do 3. Or 4. We're doing all the call-outs today. We have Omar at Vader Solutions. That's where my vanity cover came from. He also offers a bunch of other products. Very cool guy. We have one of my personal favorites. I love this guy. Is Mike Dodge of Seems Legit Garage. He's came such a long way these past couple of years, man. I love seeing his work. His car is awesome. His work's awesome. Has awesome products for you guys. We also have one of my other favorites, more of a commercial business, would be Beamer World. I think they're in Virginia, but they, obviously all these guys all ship to you. Beamer World's awesome. Circuit race team, all that cool stuff. Same thing as Seems Legit. Mike also has a circuit car. We have FCP Euro, another favorite company of mine. I always buy parts from there. A lifetime warranty on all products, even oil changes. Sounds kind of too good to be true, but it's true. My oil changes, they typically come from FCP Euro. How it works is you buy the first oil change, you get your oil, that oil stays in the car, you order the next oil change, you drain the oil in the original containers, send it back to them, get a refund, keep doing that, it's cool. They recycle the oil, whether or not their employees burn it in their oil burners for their shops and heats them, who knows? But it's a legit lifetime warranty on all their products besides aerosol cans, everything. So let's do a recap now. For the tuners, the huge 3 that I recommend to anybody. I don't care about DG Maps. I don't care about RK Tunes. Those guys, no. These 3 people you want are going to be Vlad, Joel's, and Daniel. Excellent tuners, guys. I'm telling you, I love these guys. Wouldn't trust anybody else. And then as far as the products go, we have Vader Solutions, Mike Dodge, we have Beamer World, and we have FCP Euro. All these people combined are a deadly combination for our platform or other BMWs. So if you can, give them some love with things you want. Check out their websites, whatever you want to do. I'm not sponsored by any of these guys whatsoever. I just love giving out truthful word of advice to people who I feel deserves the respect and diligence from somebody like me. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video and everything I presented for you. I'm going to cut it off here because my arm is getting very tired and my phone is going to fall any moment now. So until next time, I'll see you guys later. Have yourselves a good one.